Danielle is the Chief Personality Officer of More Than Words Marketing. So I'm really happy to have her on. And so welcome to the show, Danielle.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to be a bonus episode. I don't think I knew that. I love that.
Yeah, you're a bonus episode. Well, so here's the thing, right? You start something, and, I've been staying on the schedule of every Tuesday and all that, but now it's been so many people want to get on the show, and there's so many people I want to have on the show that I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to have to start doing like probably 2 shows a week now. So it's all good. So I'm happy to do it because, the whole reason why I started doing this project in the first place was to really give people a platform and help the people in my network to showcase who they are, what they do to, my audience and everybody in my network. So I'm very fortunate that a lot of people have really taken to it and wanted to watch it and see the people I'm connected with and hear the knowledge and advice that they have. So I'm thankful for everybody who wants to watch it. I'm thankful for the people who come on and share their time with everybody. So I'm happy to do it. It really is. It's a joy. It's fun for me to do it. So thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Cool. So Danielle and I actually met through good old fashioned networking as one does. And as I was saying yesterday too, in the interview I was doing with Chris Roush, is that, this year in particular, I've been networking and creating relationships forever, I'm sure as well as you have, but it's amazing how the pandemic, one of the silver linings of, that's come out of such a negative thing here is the fact that it's pushed not only myself, but I think others to connect with people in their network like they've never connected before. And, being able to be virtual and use things like Zoom and FaceTime and every other virtual thing out there to be able to connect with people has really been, for me, a wonderful, like I said, silver lining of all this. So, and that's how you and I actually connected, because you and I have been kind of running in the same circles and connected to the same people.
I was gonna say, we know so many people in common. I know. Like, it's crazy. And I also think that's like a New York networking thing too. Yeah. That like you get into one group and then another group and then another group. But yeah, I do think that, there's no excuses anymore for people to network. Like, you can't say, oh, I don't want to go out and go to a meeting and give out business cards and have to talk to strangers. It's so easy to be like, well, I'm going to dial it on up. And, if I'm bored or if it's not for me, I could just leave. Right. It's the barrier is so low that it just makes it really easy for people to like open up and be a little bit more receptive to trying it.
Yeah, 100% agree. And, and if before we get really started, honestly, that's the biggest thing. So, if everybody out there, if you're struggling with networking, really take advantage of the things and the tools that are out there. And if you don't know how to use them, ask somebody for help, because if your only barrier preventing you from that is you're not sure how to use the tech behind it or the platform, then ask someone for help, because once you start using it, you will be able to access so many people, more people than you could possibly imagine. And you just got to embrace it and go with it. So I urge anybody listening to go do that and, ask us for help. I'm happy to help anybody to show them how to network better and use a platform. That's, I love doing that stuff. So.
Same. Or make a recommendation too, because it could be overwhelming. Absolutely. Like if you Google networking groups now, I could see that it would be kind of sensory overload. But like to your point, if you just ask people that like, what do you do? How do you meet people? I guarantee somebody in somebody's circle can recommend a really good networking group to start with.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. So let's get into it a little bit, because we have a lot of really cool things to talk about. And so the topic of today was really to talk about how to create a better LinkedIn bio and a better About Us page. Because quite frankly, most people suck and they haven't touched it in a while. And it's not on purpose, but it's just one of those things. You do it and you leave it up there forever. But it's something that should actually be ever growing and ever changing and constantly being updated, and should really be a reflection of you. Before we get into that part, though, I'd really love to frame it up a little bit. So for the people out there that don't know who you are and what you're doing, talk about that. Who are you? What do you do? What's your background? Who's Danielle Hughes?
Who am I? It all started in a small town in Long Island. So it did start in Long Island, just not a small town. Yeah, so I have a branding and copywriting consultancy. So what that means for people, because everybody says they do branding and a lot of people don't know what a copywriter is I essentially help businesses and individuals and solopreneurs figure out what their message is and create that message into content that they can disseminate to their audience that helps them create distinction between them and everybody else, right? Because there's 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people that all do what we do, but you have your own unique way of working. You have your own unique style of relationships with clients or with your employer. And so how do you bring more of yourself into your message in order to be more authentic and more you and create those stronger connections? And so super quick, like started in television. I actually went to school to be an art director, realized that I was a better writer than I was a designer, and somehow ended up in television marketing and got into what's called ad sales marketing, where you're sort of creating all of the marketing materials that sales would need to go out and sell programming. And, this was a long time ago where you had printed pieces. We made like actual media kits and we would go on the road and do these big upfront road shows to pitch to advertisers, and you'd have to sell all the content. And took that and then went to the agency side. So I went from serving businesses to serving consumers, worked at a word of mouth marketing agency where we put brands in consumers' hands, and then ended up going freelance. And for the longest time, I was just a freelance copywriter, just working on, websites and blogs and emails and all the things that you do. And I was very fortunate that I had a lot of referrals from former colleagues, former coworkers, and I was able to kind of skate by for a really long time until I wasn't, right? You just hit that at some point, you just start realizing that like the phone's ringing less and you're just not getting clients that are reaching out to you. And it's no reason, except the reason was that I wasn't promoting myself and I wasn't networking and I didn't differentiate myself. I was just a copywriter that nobody knew, and I wasn't giving anybody anything to resonate with in my message. And so I realized that I needed to kind of take control, and instead of being passive and taking what came to me, I needed to create a business so that I could be proactive and work with the types of clients that I want to work with and have a specific message around the types of things that I wanted to say. And ended up through working with a coach, doing a ton of networking, creating more than words, and somehow stumbling upon this idea of what I call personality brand, right? Because to me, personal is private, right? And so I think that so many people shrink from that term because they don't want to put themselves out there. But our personality is already out there, right? Who you are is innately baked into you. It's something that people see every day. So how do you bring more of that to the forefront in a way that you're comfortable, and use that to your advantage to make yourself be more comfortable in messaging, but also create stronger connections with your audience. And I think if you position yourself the right way, you not only repel the wrong people, you attract the right people.
Yeah, and so true. I mean, you're basically playing off the adage that it's so true. People do business with people they like. Like that's that's it. And I can tell you that's how a lot of my decisions have been based. I mean, of course, price is in there, but I mean, really, it's like you could be like the greatest person in the world, but if I don't, or you're like the most well-known person in the world, but like if you kind of suck as a human, like I kind of don't want to work with you, if we just don't have a connection there, then it's fine. I mean, it's okay that not everybody has a connection with each other and all that, but that's the thing is people do business with people that like, and I think injecting a lot of who you are and your personality into your personal brand is so key, because I don't want to do business with a character. Like, if you're putting on a show, like, listen, I always say, like, if you want to act and you want to be a character, get into film, TV, theater, all that. Like, you could be whoever you want in those worlds because you're acting. But when you're doing business and things like that, like, I don't want to be doing business with the actor. I want to be doing business. I want to know the real person that I'm working with. So I think it's so important to make sure that your personal brand is you. It's the authenticity, which I know is a huge word, but it is. I mean, I sign off. I'll say it, like, be authentic, be yourself, because it's so true. I mean, you have to remind yourself that be the person you are. Don't be this perceived version of who you think you need to be. And that's why I love to. There's another reason why you and I connected so well, because a lot of our conversations, but a lot of like what you write and the content you put out there, it totally exemplifies that that philosophy, because it's true. It's truth to me. I mean, I think and people need to hear that.
Agreed. And I think people forget that, like, if you position yourself one way because you think that's what you should be or what people are expecting, and then they actually try to work with you and you're not that way, it's not going to be a good fit, right? So not only are you going to be pretending to be someone you're not, it could be uncomfortable. The project could go awry. It's so much easier to be who you are and know that you're going to repel some people, but that you're going to attract the right people. And then you can truly just be yourself in a client relationship or even in an employer-employee relationship, right? The more you can just get rid of these like pretenses. And I think a lot of us were raised to, your resume has to look a certain way. You have to toe the corporate line, right? You have to be all these things. Now we're in a society where individuality is your biggest asset, right? And how do you use that, again, just to connect with people, and it just takes all the pressure off yourself to be you instead of pretending to be something that you're not because you think that that's what people want.
Yeah, exactly. And you make a really good point. You said something really key in there about, if you're looking for work and an employer, and like how to, because, a lot of times we talk about like, this is from a business owner or independent professional, people in business like ourselves who really need to put that out there. But, it also works in a way if you're looking for a job, because as somebody who hired many people, like for me, skill set, while yes, very important, skill sets up there, but I also, honestly, here it is at the end of the day, like this is the truth. Like when I hand a paycheck to somebody, like what am I paying for at the end of the day? Like what's my investment with this person that I'm hiring? So yes, skill is there, but what else do they bring to the table?
Yes.
And as a small business owner, like you have to wear many hats, and you kind of expect, like, yes, while you're hired for this role, like I need to know, like, where are your other strengths? Where else can I use you to help the business grow? And when you do things like put your personal brand out there, that says to me as an employer, wow, this person's got a lot more going on for them than just like this like one singular skill set. Like there's a lot of value to this person. And I think a lot of people get very, very nervous about that. And I'm not saying you have to go post like all your, hey, I got drunk with all my friends pictures and things like that. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Don't do that,
like,
people.
Yeah. Know your audience, which is also part of it. Like understand your audience a little bit here. Like, but at the same time, like if you're sommelier and you're an expert in wine, like I kind of want to see that, because that's interesting to me. That shows me that like you have other talents, you have other interests, like you can be an expert in these things, and like I want to know that as not only as a person who may be hiring or whatnot or wanting to work with you, but like as someone who wants, like as an employer, like I want to see what this person brings to the table. And that kind of stuff says a lot to me.
Yes.
And I don't think people get nervous about that.
I mean, I think it's important what you just said. Like average recruiters spend 7 seconds looking at your LinkedIn bio or your resume. So 7 seconds. So if your resume is a bunch of jargon, which most people's are, right? It's just a whole bunch of words that they think that they need to put in that positioning statement at the top. You're not going to grab anyone's attention. And, also I think people forget that while we're writing about ourselves, we have to write about ourselves in a way that serves our audience, right? So how are you addressing the pain points? And I do workshops, and I help people with their about page, and I do resume workshops as well. And the top of your resume doesn't have to be like this whole running laundry list of all these amazing things that you've done that are like traditional. It can be positioned in a way that's like your business needs help with this. I am an expert at this because I've done X, Y, and Z. Like you can turn it back and say, like, I understand what the pain points are of the recruiter. Yes, you might need a head of marketing, but like, what's the real issue? Like, are you not getting the message out? Are you missing deadlines? Is your brand in need of like shaping? And so thinking about what it is that you do outside of what you do. Right. I had dinner with a friend last night who's a producer, and she's going to be looking for a job, and she gave me her resume, and she said, producer, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. And I was like, I was like, you could be anybody. You could be any producer anywhere. I'm like, how do we make this specific to you? What makes you special? And then we started talking, and I was like, well, what do people say about what you do? She's like, oh, they say that I like bring calm to any situation, or that I can diffuse things, or that I'm really good with the clients. And I'm like, where is that? That needs to be on here. Like, that's what they're looking for. They know you can do the job. They know you have experience. They know you can do this, but like, what are those special, like, soft skills that you can bring to the table that somebody else might not?
Yeah, it's a wonderful point. I mean, really well said. And here's something else too. And this is something I just think, and I don't know if you support this or not, but I mean, honestly, like, buy your name as a domain name and put up a site. Put up a one-page website. I mean, something like that. I mean, that just, to me, if you have like skills like that, or you're interested in things, like, why not put up a one-page site? Like, that's, buy your domain. I mean, when you talk about personal branding, I mean, now you're getting deep into that. But I mean, honestly, if you're like really out there and you're having a time right now of like, hey, I'm looking for work. I'm out of work. I was let go. And believe me, there's a lot of this going on. And you're in that stage, like, I mean, now's the perfect time to say, hey, how do I stand out? Well, this person's got their own website. Like, that, to me, that says a lot. Like, and then now, not only is there a LinkedIn page there, but now they have a website, and that's on their resume. And then I go on that website and I see things like, hey, this person's in a gardener, this person's into hobby, I don't know, whatever it is. They're a musician, they're a podcaster, they like build models for a living, like whatever it is. Like, that, to me, once again, I think speaks volumes of like, wow, this is the person that I'm bringing into this company. Like, this is really valuable for me.
I mean, I do think like a website is obviously maybe above and beyond for a lot of people, right? But I do think that figuring out a way to bring some of your personal stuff, like a hobby, a passion, and especially if it can relate back to what you do, right? Like, I worked with someone who was really into like puzzles, and she was able to work that into her message, that she figured things out because she was a puzzle person. And someone else I know is like a writer, but she's a bird watcher. So she talks about how she has like patience, and she really takes in the details and this, like, there's ways that you can maybe connect the dots. And it's also just interesting, right? Like, how many bird watchers do you know? Or, people that are into puzzles. I always tell people, my website talks about wine and CrossFit, and almost everyone I talk to brings up wine, almost every single person, because it's something relatable.
It's a connector, it's a connector. I mean, listen, we're all still human beings at the end of the day. And like, I mean, talking shop's great, but you know what? I think it's cool that like you're into CrossFit and wine, because those are things that could be of interest to me. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, I'd rather spend more time talking about that than talking about actual like
job stuff.
Job stuff. I mean, because it's just like, let's talk job stuff for 2 minutes, and then like, let's really dive into it. Like, I want to know what like your favorite Cabernet is. Like, let's talk some wine. But
I mean, we could be here all day.
So. Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, this is going to become a wine talk show.
There you go. Exactly.
But so I do want to transition a little bit now, because while we're talking about that, and this is where I think it comes in. Like, so now we're talking about like not only for people, on both sides. So it's employees, employers, all that, like business owners, founders. Like, this next stuff is really important here. And I know this is something you run courses on, you teach, you train this, and this has to do with making sure like your LinkedIn bio is like really kicks ass, like is for real. But that also goes to about us page, your about you page.
Yes.
Like, what can people do? I mean, like, I know you probably run into this, like I do too. Like, you talk to somebody, or like they either have no LinkedIn, when you go to their LinkedIn page, they have no bio.
You don't have an about section. I'm not even
like nothing's written there. Or it's like, I updated it. Like, I joined LinkedIn 5 years ago. I haven't touched it. Like, and I know you deal with that a lot. I mean, but why is that important? And I feel like we're stating the obvious, but sometimes you got to hear it. Like, why is that so important?
Well, I mean, I think it's important for part of your overall brand, right? If you are connecting with people on LinkedIn, what are they going to do? They're going to go over to your profile, and they're going to want to see like who you are and what you do. And so the first thing that's most important is it needs to be written in the first person, right? Like, I don't care. And this is not your company page. This is your personal LinkedIn page. You should say, I do this, I'm that, right? None of this like Chris Valio is blah, 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 blah. No, like, your about page on your website, I also think should be in the first person, but arguments for if you have a larger business with multiple people, okay, fine, we can separate that. Right. And again, I also think though, just something else that you need to convey is your differentiators, right? So how do you work differently than others? And remember with LinkedIn, like you only see like those first 3 sentences. So that needs to be the hook, right? So if you're just going in and saying, I'm Danielle Hughes and I'm the founder of More Than Words Marketing and I blah, blah, like you've already lost, right? So can you come up with some compelling statement? Is there a way to draw the audience in? Is it something that's a question for them? Is it something that speaks to your, people tell me that I'm, have superhero presentation skills. So, oh, well, okay, let me learn, and then you can get into, and here's why, right? Like just something that is going to refresh and reshape it is really helpful. But the about page and your LinkedIn bio, people go to them. The about page is the second most visited page on any website, right? People either land there first or they go to the homepage and they immediately bounce to the about page. And it's because they want to learn more about your business, but they also want to learn more about you. Because again, we're getting into this whole people do business with people they like. Yep. So the more you can give someone that gives them a sense of what it's going to be like to work with you, the easier it's going to be for them to take that next step, right? The more obtuse you are and the more generic, the more difficult it is. So I also tell people, like, look at your description of how you describe yourself. If you could throw somebody else's name in there and it wouldn't change anything, then it's too generic and you need to put more of yourself in there.
It's a great tip. That's a great tip. So, I like that actually. If you could throw somebody else's name in there, like that's actually really cool. I never thought about it like that.
Because then it's not you. Then it could be anybody, right? Same thing with your website. Like if you could throw another logo on there, if you could change your company name and put in your competitor, is there enough of a distinction? And if there's not, you have to figure out a way to create more of that distinction. Like what is it? Because like I said, there's competition for all of us, and that's fine because there's plenty of clients to go around. There's plenty of work to go around. But what makes somebody resonate with your message more, even though you probably do the same things as all those other people? And that's fine, but you're going to want to work with a certain type of person. So how do you also send a message about the types of people that you're looking to work with?
Right. So it's like pre-qualification, like right away.
Exactly. It's doing the vetting for you, right? Nobody comes to me anymore and doesn't know what they're getting into with me. Like if you go to my website, it is very clear how I'm going to be, the kind of relationship we're going to have. There's going to be cursing. It's going to be very fun and laid back. Like it's clear. No one comes to me and is like, oh, whoa, that's just a disconnect, right? So I don't have to vet anymore. It doesn't mean I get all the jobs, obviously, but I'm managing their expectations and they're already coming to me because there's an interest and they understand or they resonate with something.
So quick comment here, and the comment, I can't see who the actual user is because StreamYard, for whatever reason, does that with LinkedIn. But it says, wow, true. If you could copy and paste someone else's name, would make a difference. Great point. Yeah. Like I said, I never thought about it like that. You just said that. Now I'm really thinking about mine now. Like, oh my God,
You're like, crap, I got to go check it out.
I got to go check it out. Like I thought it was kind of pretty good, but now I'm like, really like, man, I gotta go look at this again.
There you go.
Yeah. Because it is, I do the same thing. I mean, we were talking a little bit about it before we even got on, and like the value of having a copywriter, be involved in your business, or, even if you are looking to, get a job and you're actively looking, like having someone else who can, be a wordsmith for you is really valuable. Like I write blogs. I'm not a good writer. Like I write a lot of all the important stuff I need to write. I write it. I think I have like the writing ability of like a 5th grader, but then I send it to my copywriter and she goes through it and she makes me sound like an intelligent human being. So it's so valuable. Like I could get the points out, but I have a hard time like articulating it in written word. Right. That's why I just stick to video and audio stuff.
I mean, it's super common. I think we all get stuck on it. And it's hard. A lot of people are like, I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about myself, or I don't know what to say. I don't know where to start. And, it's something I always tell people is go ask friends, family, coworkers to send you like 3 or 4 words that they think of when they think of you. Because people will be very surprised what comes back. And I guarantee there'll be a through line or a consistency. And those are things that you might be able to use as assets for how you do your job, right? Things that you'd never even thought of that just kind of resonate with people. And then I also say, if you give your bio or your resume to like your grandma or like a 6-year-old and they can't understand what you do, it's too jargony and you got to go back and do it again. Like it should be so clear, so plain English that it just makes sense to anybody. Jargon doesn't mean you're an expert. It just means you're an expert at putting jargon on your resume.
I was just going to say, yeah, it just means that you've opened up a thesaurus and you're able to like really find some big Scrabble type words to use.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So, and it just dilutes it. I mean, yes, we all know that like LinkedIn, there's bots that are trolling LinkedIn, yes. Right? So you need to have certain things in there, but those things can be in your experience. Those things can be further down, but that like top positioning statement, like that's your chance to just get the bullhorn out and like amplify your own message and own how you want to describe yourself. I always say like the bottom of the resume that always had the skills and special interests, like, why was that there? Like it was never really relevant to anything, but like almost every interview you ever went on, they would ask you about it because that's the part that made you human, right? The rest of your resume was just a bunch of like words and numbers. But that bottom section, it's like, oh, she does karate. Oh, she's like fluent in Spanish, or oh, she likes to, garden. Like again, it just brings more of that human role to us. That
it's that experience. Yeah, and I once again another great point, because that's what I'm talking about. That's the stuff I would rather see as somebody's content that they're putting out there on LinkedIn, Facebook, and social media. If they did have a one-page site or whatever, I would love to see more of that kind of content, because that to me, once again, I'm now getting to know the person I'm going to be working with, and I think that's valuable, because in that stuff are the skills that do translate to whatever position, role, somebody else's business. Like that stuff does translate, whether you think about it or not. But when you put your from an employer seat, like I read that stuff and I go, wow, martial arts, that's actually a really important skill. Like it's not just the self-defense, but I know the discipline. Yes, right, the discipline, the strategy, thought process, patience. Like I know what goes along with that. Like when you see things like, they build models or all those, like whatever they are, like they're adventurer, they go on trails, they mountain bike, they hike. Like that shows to me that like, wow, this is an active person, which means they're an active mind, which means they like challenges. They're
like creative, right? They thrive. They like to do things, get into it. Right. Everything that we do is an extension. 100%.
Yeah. And that's why I say, like, don't have the fear, man. Like I'm telling everybody right now, get over the fear of this stuff, because it is 100% a thing that will make you stand out from basically the thousands and thousands of other people that do have the same skill set as you. But it's all about like standing out and saying, hey, engage with me. Like I am an interesting person. Like I am a real person. So,
yes.
I like to, this is stuff I'd like to talk about, because it's important. It's important. And I know there's a fear around it, because it is something that's been sort of ingrained in us and beaten down. And, what this overarching, like right, exactly. Like corporate America wants this, and, just toe the company line and that's it. And, we don't want any individualism or anything like that, but that's just not the case anymore.
No. Who you are first, what you do second. That's literally the most important thing. If you take away anything, it's more important who you are. What you do, they know what you do. Like it's fine. Like everyone can do that. It's there, but who you are as the person is so much more valuable. And that's the asset. Eventually you're hiring a person, right? You're not hiring a skill set. You just hope that person has that skill set.
Right. 100%. Absolutely. I love that. So, and I know you're not a LinkedIn expert, so we were talking about that too, but when you are thinking about LinkedIn, and that bio piece, what are your thoughts too on the headline? So right under your pictures, I know everybody I talk to has got something different. They do different things. And I'm also an advocate of like, I like that space. I think it for me, I like to play around with it. I like to update it frequently. I like to put different things in, just because, I don't know, I find it more fun to play with. But from your point of view, from your experience, what have you seen with it? Because I actually get asked that a lot, about what to do with that space. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think it depends on the person and it depends on the message. I do think there is some veracity in changing it up a little bit. I think if you have a tagline, put your tagline in there. Like the worst thing that someone can do is just put their title and their company, because again, that doesn't tell you anything. right? Like, I think I have my title because I call myself a chief personality officer. So I feel like my title in a way sort of suggests a little bit more of that to the headline.
I say chief rock and roller.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, but like, I think it's also okay to put in words that, like, musician, salesperson, thought leader, thinker, that's okay too. But don't just put like, blah, 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 Morgan Stanley. Like, figure out a way to at least differentiate it somehow. And again, it's just something that is going to differentiate you. Is it one of these words that describes you? Is it a phrase you like to use? Is it something that's motivational for you? There's obviously limitations to with the character limit. So sometimes you got to kind of putz around with it a little bit to make it work. But I just think like the worst thing you could do, first of all, the worst thing you could do is like just put your title. But the idea of like switching it up a lot, I also think is just see what resonates with people, because you just never know what's going to resonate. You can put a hashtag in there if you're a big hashtag person. It's just another extension of you. So I just think use all the space, right? If you have extra room, add something. If you want to put, if you do work for a company and you have to say that you're like, the head finance person at Morgan Stanley, that's fine. But then maybe afterwards you can add something that's a little bit more like, lover of spreadsheets, whatever, profit first. I don't know, something that's just a little bit compelling, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So in the comments here, so Alice O'Malley's been one commenting. So blending in will get you nowhere.
Agreed. 100%, Alice. Amen. Yeah. That's right.
Blending in. I mean, that says it all right there. I mean, I think that sums up a lot of the conversation we've been having, and why people just need to get over that. I mean, and a lot of the thing, and I was talking about this yesterday, is the biggest obstacle is yourself.
Yes.
Like, in almost 99.9% of every situation, it's yourself that's in the way. It's your own mindset of I can't do this. I don't know the technology. What are people gonna think about me? Is a huge one. And
but that's it. You're controlling your own narrative, right? So you can determine what people think of you by putting out, and I know you say like, just get over yourself. It's not even that. It's like, what is the line of where you're willing, like how much are you willing to share versus what are you not, right? We're not forcing anyone to like bare their soul. You don't have to be bold and in your face, but is there something that you do that you have a passion for, that you love, or a movie or whatever that you can somehow just maybe insert into your stuff? Like, it could be baby steps, right? Start somewhere and like try to like be a little more of a niche when you're with your message. And then you'll eventually be like, okay, that felt okay, right? It's like going in the water, like put your toe in the water, then take the next step, then maybe get to your knees, then maybe put your butt in the water, and eventually you're over your head, right? So
right, exactly. Yeah.
That's great.
That's a great analogy. I love that. It's so true, though.
Start somewhere. Because you think it's going to like blow up, right? And you like, you do it and you're like, okay, nothing happened. All right, well, let's add a little more. Still nothing happened, right? It's going to be fine. It's totally going to be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know another fear too, that I've addressed with a lot of people is, well, what if I put a post out there and nobody likes it or nobody comments on it? And I'm like, okay, so what? I mean, posts I put out that some people don't comment or engage on, but fine. It's just, you just move on and you do your next post either that day or tomorrow. I mean, you can't get wrapped up into thinking about it too much, I mean, obviously if you want to measure engagement on things and you want to A/B test things or ABC test things, like, hey, do people like videos over pictures over, I mean, that's all fine and great. And so look at that if that's the strategy you're going to go with, but you can't sit here and over obsess over like, oh, I created this awesome post and then nobody engaged with it. Like, oh, forget it, I'm out. And that's I mean, do you see that? Do people talk to you about that?
Everything.
How do I write the perfect post?
Right. First of all, there's no such thing as perfect. Second of all, I think everything can't be a hit, because then nothing would be a hit, right? If everything was great, they'd have nothing to measure it by. But I think, if you're really proud of it, that's what matters. And if nobody responded, it also doesn't mean that they didn't read it. They just maybe didn't, hit the like button. It doesn't mean that it didn't get engagement. You could, yes, go look at it and say, okay, maybe like why maybe didn't this resonate? What was the topic? Did I not position it the right way? Was my headline maybe not compelling enough, right? Remember, like people don't get to the body of something if the headline's not compelling. So that could be the first thing. But you know what? You just move on. You go to the next one. Like everything, you just have to keep going and eventually find your voice and you'll figure out what resonates. And I'm always surprised by the things that get gangbusters reactions, and then the things that you think are so great that get like 2 responses, right? And the one thing that you're like, oh, I banged this out in like an hour and it's fine, and I'm not going to hit send, and then it's like your email blows up. It's like, love this, totally resonated. And I'm like, really? And then the things that you spend all this time on that you're like, this is great, like 2 people, and you're like, okay, then, well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly it. I mean, it's like they want to say there's a science to it, and yes, there's definitely strategy to it, but at the same time, it's what shows up in somebody's feed at that time that they're ready to engage it just is what it is.
Correct.
I mean, it's really it's kind of to chance a bit. So, but I thought it was worth talking about that because I know it's something I get asked about. Like, what if I create all this content and nobody engages with it? And I'm like, well, first of all, that may happen to some of it, but it's not going to happen to all of it.
Agreed. If you create enough content, people will engage with it, right? And it takes a long time, right? It's like networking. You're not going to create all these amazing connections your first meeting or your second meeting or your third meeting. You have to build the relationships. And it's the same thing with your content. Your content needs to build a relationship with your audience. And then you'll start to see what they respond to, and you can tailor it more to them. And eventually there'll be much more of a resonation than in the beginning.
Absolutely. No, well said. So I got one more question for you, which I think is also a question I get asked a lot, and this may open up another can of worms, but so I do get asked this, and I have my way of doing it. But I mean, when it comes to, because I want to talk a little bit more about writing, but like when we're talking about blogging, right? What is your recommendation for how often somebody should be posting a new blog on their site? Is it a once a month, two times every week? Like what are your recommendations, or what have you seen as far as best practices go?
So I think it depends on your goals, right? The only reason to put a blog on your website is for SEO, because nobody's going to anybody's website to read their blogs anymore. Like, that's just not a real thing. Unless you're promoting that blog in your social channels. I recommend a newsletter because A, it allows you to get your email addresses of your audience, but B, it puts you in their inbox on a regular basis. And it just is like a gentle reminder that you're there when they need you. I think that if Instagram or Facebook or whatever, or LinkedIn goes down one day, you have no way to connect with your audience. But if you have their email, you always have a way to stay in touch with your audience. So it's also got the highest ROI, and it's the #1 most effective marketing tool. So I think you do a newsletter as often as you can. So like being realistic, right? It's like a diet. Like, let's not try to go do all the things and say, I'm going to do this every week and I'm going to get this out here. And then like 5 weeks in, you're like exhausted and you're like, F this, I'm out. Like figure out a baby step of what you can commit to. Maybe you start with once a month. And you think, okay, let's try this. Then maybe you move to twice a month. So my newsletter goes out twice a month. And it's been going out twice a month for well over a year because I knew in my head I can reasonably commit to twice a month. Once a month for me felt not often enough, but every week felt like a lot. I was like, people don't need to hear from me every week. But like twice a month, it's like just a little bit like, hey, I'm, tap on the shoulder. I'm still here in case you need me, you know. If they read it, they read it. If they don't, they don't. But like, as long as you don't unsubscribe, you're seeing my name pop up in your inbox on a regular basis. And that's really what your goal is. I know some people who do newsletters and then do blogs that are separate. I just repurpose my newsletter and put it on my website as a blog for SEO purposes.
That's a good idea.
I call it composting your content, right? You're just taking that old content and like kind of recycling it into something new and letting it grow into something new. I literally just take the exact same thing and put it in my blog. Some people modify it. But I think one piece of content can be made into like 50 pieces of content if you want to do that. And that's an easy way. Yeah. So I think the short answer is whatever you can commit to, and be realistic with yourself and honest with yourself, and don't bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah. And we've got a comment here. Exactly. Yes. Email addresses are a business asset.
1,000%. 1,000%. You know, and it's not even about amassing a ton of them. Like, you don't need a large audience. You just need a dedicated audience, right? I think. So
agreed.
There's like that article, I think it's Kevin Kelly, that's like 1,000 true fans or something. And the idea is like that a good business doesn't need more than 1,000 people buying from it, or even less. You just need the same people to keep buying over and over.
Raving fans.
Yeah, raving fans. Exactly. That's it. Yep.
Yeah, it's 100% true. And I do talk about that too when I say, hey, identify your audience. And I think a lot of right away people go to like, oh my God, I need thousands upon thousands of people. And it's like, no. You need to start with like a really good core, like 100 to 200 people that are in your, and that combines not only a professional, but also people forget about family and friends.
Yeah,
and those
100%.
people are part of your network, because those people will be awesome. So they're awesome sales reps for you. But like most times when you ask your family and friends, like what you do, they cannot describe it at all. They're like, what? So the more you can actually educate them, the more they're out there. And that begins between that and your professional network. That's your audience. That's who you begin to build with. And then it kind of fans out from there. But get that core audience, like really buying into what you do. And that's the stuff that'll like then begin to propel you to where you want to go. Like, don't get into the trap of like, I need to grow 10,000 fans like on Instagram tonight. No. It's not a reality for most people, unless you like really want to be this like super duper influencer. That's a whole other story. But like, if you're in your community and you're trying to build a business and sell that, like,
you don't need that many. You just want to, and treat them with respect, because your initial core group, those are your seeds. Those are the seeds you've planted, and nothing else is going to grow if you bury those seeds because you want so many others, right? Just don't put dirt on top of them. Let them flourish.
Yep, there you go. Well said. Well said. That's a great way. That's a great way to sum up this whole conversation today.
Don't put dirt on your audience.
Don't put dirt on your audience. I love that. So Danielle, how can people get a hold of you? Because I mean, you have a lot. You have the website. I know you're on social media. You've got courses. Like, what's a great way for people to engage with you?
So the best way is to sign up for my newsletter, which, as we all know, is just twice a month. And you can go to my website, morethanwordscopy.com, and there'll be links there for you to sign up for my newsletter. That's probably the best way. And then from the newsletter, sometimes I'll talk about if I'm doing a workshop. I do workshops on building your about page or building your bio. And then I have other ways that I can work with clients. But my newsletter is probably the best way to get in touch with me. And you can also just email me on my website as well. If you just want to reach out and you have a question, there's a contact form. I'm here to help anybody get some more personality. That's all.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me today. This was great. This is everything I wanted it to be. So
thank you so much. Everything
you made
and more.
My dream come true.
I'm so glad. It was really fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. So thank you, everybody who watched today, participated, made comments, all that. Thank you, everybody who continues to watch, subscribe, share the show, not only watching here live on the LinkedIn, Facebook, Periscope, but also everybody who goes back and rewatches them on YouTube and also listens to the podcast. Really appreciate all of your support. So thank you guys so much. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time on Rock It Live. And remember, be authentic, be yourself, and always remember to rock it.
There we go.
There you go.